Welcome to the Leader Mentality Show. This is Rob Clemens. Today we are going to talk about all kinds of great things because I have a guest on the show that she does leadership. She talks about bettering yourself. She's an author. She's an organizational consultant and even an adventurer. So I'm kind of excited to hear what kind of adventure she's been up to. But her name is Heather Hansen O'Neill. And Heather, I think I set you up well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I'm very excited.
Well, I'm excited to hear from you because one of the things that's so important is you talk about opening hearts, minds, and doors. And that's important for, I think, every leader to consider in their day-to-day. I mean, this is your slogan, so we're not stealing it. But let me tell you, if I were going to steal one, it would be that, because it's great. Opening hearts, minds, and doors. It applies to your business. It applies to your employees. It applies to your clients, everybody down the chain. So very cool stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get back to that at the end. I want to hear a little bit more about that. But before we get into all this kind of jazz, what have you been up to lately, Heather?
Oh my gosh, so much going on. I'm very excited. Let's see. I have the Humanity of Sales radio show that you were an amazing guest on.
Oh,
very
thank you.
Exciting. Good stuff. So we have to plug that. That's the Humanity of Sales where purpose meets profit. So there's a lot of good stuff about purpose and profit in there. I have the new book coming out. Now I have already written 3. This is my 4th book.
Nice.
And it is coming out Thanksgiving week. We're doing a book launch party on November 26th. A lot of fun for that because not only is it me writing what my story is, I've invited 40 contributors to share their stories of humanity.
Wow.
A lot of fun. That's called Finding Humanity, the evolution of sales.
Okay, and let me ask you a question about that. So when you talk about you have 40 people who have told their stories. How hard was it to get them all kind of, I mean, are the formats completely different from one to one? Did you kind of adopt that and embrace that? Or did you make them stay into a certain kind of a means of telling that?
No. I'm going to say no. I did not rein them in. Maybe I should have. I'm not sure yet. We shall find out. No. I've spent quite a few years in this humanity movement. And so I had lots of conversations. I asked people what their stories were in different formats, whether it was on the podcast, whether it was in person at an event, whether it was, lots of different ways. And then when I decided to compile it all into a book, I went back and said, hey, I loved your story. Would you mind me including it into the book? And they were like, yeah, thank you.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I didn't mean to get you off track,
No.
but that's great. I mean, I want to hear more when you tell your backstory about how you've come up with the topics of your books and how you develop those. But we'll save that for section 2.
Okay, You got it.
So you were saying, though, you got your book coming out. You've been doing some other stuff. What else?
Well, so most of the time I get on a plane to go visit my clients to do like national sales conferences and things like that. But here in this community, I've had a lot of fun getting back to the core of small sales group programs. And so I have this one called the Sales Adventure that has really taken off. And we started here in the Myrtle Beach area and then expanded up into Charlotte and Raleigh and Charleston and those areas. And so it's a lot of fun. It's like a half-day program where entrepreneurs or small teams of salespeople come together and we have great conversations and learn some things about sales.
Man, that's so cool. What is the thing that, I have 2 questions to follow up on that. One is, these people that hire you to come and speak to their teams, what do they look like? Who's the ideal candidate that's calling you?
Okay, so I have 2 very distinctly different markets. So when I am being brought in for a keynote, one of those larger events, that's going to be somebody typically like a VP of sales or marketing. Occasionally I'll come in through HR, but it is a larger organization. So it's not always the CEO, which is when I'm working with smaller companies. It's always the CEO, right? And so those C-suite folks are ones that understand the ROI of having someone be able to release any fears that people have about sales, motivate their people, get them to take action. But on the other side, the smaller groups, those entrepreneurial spirit folks, that is somebody who's started a business and is wearing all the hats, or they're starting to take their hats off and give them to other people, and now they've got a sales team, or maybe they don't even call them a sales team. Anyone in the organization is in sales. You and I know that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So tell me something that you find is a mistake, maybe not even a mistake, but a shortcoming that a lot of these organizations have in their sales process that you're trying to introduce and help them with.
Okay, so the smaller ones or the bigger ones?
The smaller ones.
The smaller ones. Well, the whole trying to do it all, and I myself have the same challenge, so I can understand why they have it, but wanting to be in control of everything. And as you are growing, you need to release some of that control and trust people more and create the space and environment that enables people to thrive, become their best selves. That's one of the biggest things that I think is a growing pain in some of the organizations that I work with.
Where do you think that a business owner, how do they know when they're at that point, though? Because you and I talked about this, even my own business. When you start it, it's your baby. It's so personal to you. It's not your business, man. It's your life, right? You've devoted your time into it, and it's very personal to you. And now you're at that point where you can't kind of control everything if you want to grow anymore. But how do you know when that time is?
When you are stressed out doing it all. I mean, and that's probably too late, to be honest, right? When you know that the business that is coming in, you're not able to handle it all. When you start to get some really good people who you can trust to be able to give a little bit more responsibility to. Some of the things that I think are super important is to keep the communication, the lines of communication open so that you're working together. It's not just you saying, okay, suddenly, now you're involved. Here's this job, here's this hat, but talking throughout the process as you're growing your organization, because we feel very isolated as entrepreneurs, right? And we want to be able to find people, like-minded people, who you can connect with, grow with.
Right. Well, I do think that communication is the key, like you said. And I feel like that sometimes when you've created something, you know it so intimately. And this is a danger I have for all business owners and entrepreneurs. Anybody who's created something very personal to them, you understand it immensely because you have sat there and put together every thought, every concept, and made it into something. And now you give it to somebody else and it's like, well, that makes sense, right? But their brain is not wired for what you wired them up with. So I do think this communication is huge.
You know, I want to add something to that because you bring up something really important. Most of the time, as entrepreneurs, when we decide to start a business, we're doing it because we're passionate about something. We have a skill set or a product or service that we know is needed out in the world. We're really, really excited about it and we know it very well. But we may not know everything that we need to know to run a business. Right? And so when you look at what are the things that you're really good at, don't farm those out. Don't give those away, right? But you can't be good or extraordinary at every part of running a business because it requires different personality styles, different behavioral styles, different talents and skills. And so start with the ones that you're not good at, okay? So I will, full disclosure, I don't really like the whole invoicing monetary side of it. It doesn't bring me a lot of joy.
This has been an expose with Heather Hansen O'Neill. What does she not like about it?
So that's the first thing I give away. You're way better at it. You can do it faster. And I don't like to do it, and you love to do it. Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and the thing I love about it is that, to your point, I mean, if you're the best salesperson at your company, maybe you shouldn't give that up so quickly, but maybe you're not the greatest paperwork person. Maybe you're not the greatest organizer, and you need to find people who can compliment you on that. That makes sense. Okay, so then let's go another route. When we talk about enthusiasm, I've noticed through your stuff that you do, enthusiasm is at the core of a lot of it. I think that goes back to your adventurer stuff. I mean, you're an enthusiastic person. Where do you find an organization, or better yet said, how, if you feel like enthusiasm is lacking amongst the masses, how do you get that out of your employees?
That is the question, Rob. That's a brilliant question. And it's part of the reason that I actually have a business, so thank you.
Plug.
Because we get really excited. We're super passionate, like I said, and we think that entrepreneurial spirit, we'll call it the adventurer, the peak performer, the athlete, all of those things are qualities that translate across the board, right? And that's something that most of the time an entrepreneur will have, but not everyone in the organization has, and that's okay. But what you want to do is you need to pull out what they have that's the best and get buy-in on what gets them excited, what gets them passionate and energized, because it may come across as enthusiasm because it is, but it's really energy.
Yeah.
Focusing our energy, and we can get that in many different ways.
Interesting stuff. I don't know if you've ever looked into this. Have you ever studied love languages at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
What are yours? Do you know?
Oh, yes. I definitely touch. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha.
Yep.
I didn't know if that was like, oh, that's a secret, right? Well, no, I found out mine are words of affirmation.
Yes.
And honestly, it's important you say that. Now, I like to apply it to a business level. And managers out there, if touch is their thing, be careful of that. but my point is the same, though. The whole concept of love language, in my opinion, is that you're not doing what is good for you. You don't treat other people as you like. You understand what they like. So if somebody is words of affirmation, great. Hey, great job today, Heather. But then another person, I say, great job today, Heather. They're like, yeah, that doesn't really matter to me much. How about the gift? How about like a little cupcakes or something? They said, I care. So I do think that that's a huge thing. You got to know where people are.
Yes. I love that you brought that up, because it's really getting to the point where you're stepping away from your self-focus and just better understanding the other person, whether that is through love languages or whether it's DISC that I know that you're very good at as well. I have an AQ assessment, which is an adventure quotient, that does the same type of thing, helps you understand your strengths and the strengths of other people, and it also comes back to what they need, how they want to be communicated with, how they want to be affirmed, how, all of that is very important. And looking at, let's just say DISC, because like I said, I know that you know that very well, is that like someone who, maybe a high I might really like that affirmation to take place on stage in front of lots of people, right? And tell everybody how wonderful you are. But meanwhile, a high C would definitely not want that. And a high S might prefer like a handwritten note. And understanding behaviors,
yes,
it helps you be able to better serve your people.
100%. Yeah, I love that you said that. And for those who don't know DISC, drivers, influencers, stability, compliance, and there's different ways of terming them. I like to use those. But you're right, the stability person, the supportive person, they love that. Man, you're just amazing today. And I hope the family's doing well. That's a very S thing. Yeah. But the I, let's get some back patting and all that stuff. Gotcha. Cool. Let me throw one more thing, and then we're going to go on to a little bit of your background here. I've wanted to ask you this for a while. I met you before, and she's a wealth of information. Anybody listening to this show, even if you don't get to hear it all on the show, go to her website, go to her podcast, hire her for a speaker. Great stuff coming out of Heather Hansen O'Neill. But I have a question for you. What are your thoughts? And I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't pre-talk about this. I believe that people hit their stride at a certain point in life, and you don't know when that's going to be for everybody. I believe that sometimes it's rare, but you'll find that 16-year-old kid that they are knowing everything they're doing. Maybe they're the valedictorian. They know exactly where they're going in life. I believe some people, they may not get there until their mid-40s, for all you know. Tell me a little bit about how you know someone may be about to hit their stride and what that looks like.
Well, I'm actually going to throw a little crimp in this, I think, because I believe that people are ready to hit their stride when they're most challenged.
Okay, all right.
Right before that tipping point, right before they bloom, right before they come into themselves, they typically have experienced some type of challenge that they've overcome and gained the lesson, the strength from to be who they need to be to get into that stride. So I'm a firm believer in embracing the challenges and learning from them, because I think that is the key to stick with it, because that person who hit their stride at 16, the valedictorian, they're doing fantastic. Long about 30 or 40, they're going to start questioning things, and they have to be able to stick with it. Wow. Pick themselves up, continue, maybe tweak, find a new way to that greatness, because we are not one point of greatness. We are Greatness, step back. It's the cha-cha. It's the cha-cha. Couple steps forward, couple steps back. I always got to add a little dance into it.
I like to say it's the stock market. It goes down a little, it might go up a little bit down, but hopefully always trending up, right?
That's right, that's right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate you addressing that, because I believe that's exactly right. I never thought about it that way, though. It's when you've gone through some challenge, some pivotal point in your life, and you've come through it, and maybe now's that time. And here's what's important about that. We as leaders out there, and I say we as leaders, my brand of leadership is that everybody's a leader. It's just what level of leader are you, right? How advanced are you? But sometimes there's this going thing it's too simple in my mind, but it's like, if you send somebody out here, they can be the best, you're going to change them for the best. And I believe some people, if that clock hasn't started, they may not be ready, and you can't force them to be it. But you can provide the little incubation chamber. You can provide the stimulus, the spark to help them get there. So
yes, I love that. And we talked before about that same concept of creating a space or an environment for people, right? And that's really important. So that's kind of leading to what you were just talking about.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick break. Heather, I know we can talk all day about this stuff.
Yes,
this is really good information. And we'll just have to do a two-parter. That's what it's maybe a three-parter. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But let's get into a little bit about your journey. And as I've told so many people, the important part of the journey is that some people knew exactly where they're going, and they're there now. But that is the smallest percentage of people I talk to. A lot of people, there's been a journey that took them in some directions they weren't expecting, and now they're here. But you're doing such great things. As I said, you are a national speaker. I mean, you're doing it. A lot of people want to do it. You're doing it. But let's talk about how you got there.
I'm going to go back. Don't worry, I won't take as long as it took me to get here, but I'm going to go back because I think it will apply to what you're talking about. So my first career was as a professional dancer. They actually, at 13, would take me from my school and pay me to go dance at other schools. And then I traveled around a lot, Broadway, off-Broadway, all of that fun stuff. And I'm telling you this because that's what I knew I was supposed to do. That's what was the joy, the passion in my life, right? It was what I loved. I was living my best life. And then I was at the height of my career, around 24 and a half, 25 years old. I had just gotten a fantastic lead. I was in a rehearsal, did a grand jeté, came down, crack, crumbled to the ground.
Ooh.
Long story short, the doctor said I would never dance again. So you can imagine
just the crush. Yeah.
Like that was everything. I had no concept that anything else I'm doing now even exists.
Right, there's no plan B at that point. And plan A is the plan A, and plan B is plan A, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I did go through this period of you know, I call them the dark years. I kept moving forward and doing things, but there was always this element of, I can't believe this was taken from me. Now, thankfully, I do tend to run a little optimistic by nature, as you know. It didn't last as long as it could have. But I started to ask, well, what if? What if that doctor wasn't right? Right? Yeah. What if? And so I ended up dancing again, and I actually dance today.
Okay.
I don't do it professionally anymore, but I brought that passion, that love back into my life, and it has energized every other thing that I do. And during those dark years, I went into the fastest way to make money, and that was with sales, right? Turns out I really enjoyed it, and I happened to be pretty good at it, right? And so I was golfing with a friend of mine who was also a client in advertising sales, and I was telling him this idea that I had on how to make the sales better by really tying it into customer service. And he's like, "You're a fireball. You should do this." And I'm, "No, they're not ready for it." And he goes, "No. You should start your own business. I'll be your first paying client. If you do a great job, I'll tell everybody. If you don't, I won't tell anybody."
That's a good deal.
Right? How could I refuse?
Right.
And so I did. I didn't even realize that that was a thing, that you could start a business like that. But I really worked hard. I did a great job for him. And he honored his promise. And he went out and he told everybody, and my business skyrocketed.
Wow.
It was fantastic. Now, that was a point in time way back in the day where people were throwing money at consultants and trainers to do their business. So
it's pretty trendy for a while.
It was awesome. It's not that way anymore. It's still awesome to do it, but not the same environment.
Sure.
Yeah, and so it started from there. I ended up, how much more of the story do you want?
Oh, I mean, I love the story. The more the better.
Yeah, so what happened was, because of the rapid growth of it, I was rocking and rolling, I was traveling all the time, it was so awesome. But there was this little clock ticking, and I was thinking, oh gosh, I want a family, right? And so apparently, once I get something in my mind, I do it. And so I ended up having 3 children within 18 months.
Wow.
And if you're doing the math, yes, I had twins.
Yeah.
Right after my first. So
I was actually doing the math. I'm like carrying the 2. Okay, yeah, all right. It must be twins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happened was I didn't want to keep up that same lifestyle. So I went back and got my coaching certification so I could keep my clients, serve my clients, but not do it in a way where I'm never home.
Yeah, I got you.
Right? Yeah. And that's when I wrote a couple of books,
Yeah.
and it brings me to where I am today, minus about 700 stories.
Right.
I mean, we only have 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. For part 1, we
Yeah,
only have.
exactly.
All right, so let me ask you this. All right, and 2 things were very important that you told in your story that I'd like to share with everybody. But before I get into those 2 points, I want to mention something. And this is important. We talked about DISC a minute ago. And there are drivers, influencers, supportive, stability people, and compliance. Your DISC profile, is you're a driver and influencer, or are you an influencer driver?
Okay, yes to both.
Okay.
When I do it thinking about me personally, my I is a little higher than my D. When I think about work, it's the other way around.
And I can relate with this.
Yeah.
So what you said is the core aspect of a D, a driver. And I think that sometimes people are trying to figure out, why is somebody like they are? It's about the way you're wired. It doesn't make you better or worse.
Right.
It may make you more effective at some things than others. Look, a C may be more effective with their compliance methods than a D is, right? But Ds get stuff done.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny when you said that. When I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it. So I had 3 and they
I'm not saying that happens for everyone.
She's not making the model for everybody to do, but nevertheless. Well, that's really cool. 2 things you talked about that I'd like to illuminate a little bit. Number 1, you said, man, why was this taken from me? And it kind of ties into what I asked earlier, which is, how do you know when somebody's about to hit their stride? But more importantly, you said, why is this taken from me? And I feel like that so often we feel like that in life. And I'd like to underscore that for a minute, because, look, life is not easy. Now, anybody who's going to sit out here, this is one problem I have with self-help books sometimes. Life isn't easy. And if anybody's going to stand up on stage and tell you that life is going to be easy if you just make your bed every morning, they're leading you astray. Life has sometimes those feelings like, why was this taken from me? And what's your words to somebody who says that to you right now? They're saying, Heather, I don't understand why this was taken to me. What would you tell them?
I would tell them what I now know to be true. Everything that has happened in my life has happened for a reason, and I am better for it. If that had not happened, I wouldn't be who I am today, and I wouldn't have the ripple effects and helping other people so that they could go out and help other people. I wouldn't be able to do it. I gathered the strength, the skills, the resilience in those moments where I thought, why is this happening to me? So I always encourage people to ask and to know sooner rather than later, because we all have that thing. You'll have that moment that you can look back on and say, oh, that was terrible, it was awful, but hey, I learned this from it. I got this from it. That job that I lost, that I was so upset, it opened the door for me to get this better one over here. But sometimes it takes a while, right? So you can always find the silver lining after a period of time. So I encourage you to look for the silver lining within the moment of the challenge.
Well, that's beautiful. And within that adversity, you have 2 kinds of ways of going about it. And I had Ben Greenswag on the show. show not too long ago, and he talked about victim mentality versus allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And vulnerability, you can learn, you can feel it, you can experience it, but you can grow from it. Victim mentality, maybe sometimes you just take yourself on down. Hey, look, life isn't worth trying anymore. Right. So keep pushing ahead. I love that. The other thing you talked about, and this is the ripple effect, so I'm glad you said that. The ripple effect of what we can do for others in this world. To me, that's another brand of my leadership. Leadership, in my estimation, is the person who can make the greatest good to their environment around them. That's leadership at its most basic. You talked about this person in your life. Do you still know the one who told you that if he hired
mentor?
you? Yes.
I do. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a funny story about that. We lost touch. Lost touch. But at some point, I was like thinking, gosh, what am I grateful for? None of this amazing life that I have would have happened if he hadn't opened that for me.
Exactly.
And so I was like, I gotta reach out to him. And I tried to find him, and he wasn't where I expected him to be. And I searched all over for him. I finally found him in a different state with different contact information. And I called him up and I said, Richard, I just wanted to say thank you. And he said, for what? And I reminded him of the story. And this is what's beautiful. He was like, oh, I didn't even know the impact that it had on you, but that's just who he is. He does that in general, constantly doing that ripple effect. And so it's going to come back, and sometimes you don't know about it. But letting him know, he cried.
Wow. It's like the movie It's a Wonderful Life, you know. At the end, sometimes you really don't know what you're doing, and so that would be another message that I have. Sometimes somebody was a galvanizing force in your life, and you know it. It's real to you, and they might not know it. So my message to everybody, I thank you for sharing that, is you might be doing something that has helped somebody that you don't even realize you helped. And it may be the smallest kindness you've done. So be nice to everybody. That's kind of the message.
Yes.
All right. Absolutely. Let's take a quick break. Well, Heather, that is really amazing stuff, and I appreciate you sharing. Now, I wanted to finish the show where we started. We talked off at the beginning about opening hearts, minds, and doors. And that's very important to you. It's a central theme of what you do. So let's talk a little bit about how you can go about doing that and maybe what the benefits of that are in life, okay?
Sure.
So opening hearts, minds, and doors with Heather Hansen O'Neill.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that you pulled that full circle. You know what you're doing. This isn't his first rodeo. So yes, opening hearts, minds, and doors. I do a lot, as you know. So I like to try to make it as clear as possible for people. And this is a really interesting way to sum it up. So opening hearts is coming into our interactions, into our lives, into our businesses from a place of humanity. How can we lead with that heart of humanity in every interaction? Becoming present, putting away the phone, the computer, focusing on your children. That's what they will remember later on in life, on your spouse, on your team members, with your customer. Those are the things that people will remember, is when you are present with them and you're listening. And then what you were talking about earlier is how when we listen, what we learn about what they need so that we can give it to them, right? If we skip that step, we're not going to be able to serve. And so that heart of humanity for me and everything that I do also extends out into a kind of a global way. How are we impacting our communities and our world as well? So that's the heart of humanity. Then there's opening minds. And for me, that is the adventure mindset, right? And so, yes, you mentioned I'm an adventurer. But I think that while my comfort zone is rather large, I don't mind jumping out of airplanes, swimming with sharks, or eating fire.
Wow.
I do not recommend that for those of you at home.
Eating fire in particular?
In particular. But any of the things that I do, I do it to take the story to share with you, to encourage you to expand your comfort zone wherever you are. And for some of the people that I work with, that means picking up the phone and asking for the sale.
Wow.
It means talking to people at a networking event instead of embracing the fear and standing in the corner on your phone pretending you don't want to talk to anybody. Sometimes it could be just practicing by singing in line at Starbucks. I don't know. That's a little bit crazy. But what you want to do is practice expanding your comfort zone on a regular basis so that you're ready when the opportunity presents itself, so that you can grab it.
I love that. And before we get into the doors, opening the doors, I think that some of the stuff you're talking about has been scientifically documented recently. I mean, they're showing that when you put yourself into a lack of a comfort zone, you're doing something constructive that's not in your comfort zone, that there's this little part of your brain that grows a little bit, and that's the one that's tied into happiness and self-fulfillment. And I believe that sometimes one of my tips is for people who are feeling a little down, if you're in a down stretch, set yourself a goal and make yourself a goal, whatever it is. Hey, I want to lose 5 pounds. I want to, I want to run a mile. I want to finish 10 pages of a book. Set yourself a goal because that's something you can accomplish. So yeah, that's beautiful.
I love that you pointed that out. So I feel like science is catching up to my craziness. And what I mean by that is, as a dancer, I've always known that the way to energize is to move your body. Right?
Yeah.
But now, finally, 25 years in business, the science is saying, oh, by the way, if you want to change your state, move your body. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
nice, thank you.
It's great when science meets craziness or craziness, whichever way. But no, that's amazing because it is. There's such a mind-body connection, and for too long, it's been almost more like a hooey thing, like my mind-body. I'm telling you, there is something to it.
Science.
When you feel good, when you eat properly, when you do, when you keep your mind ready, everything follows. So, okay, beautiful. Right.
Okay, so the third one in the opening is opening doors. Now, you use the first two to get to the third one, right? And so opening doors, because my focus is on creating opportunities for my clients, on helping them make better, deeper connections so that they can expand their business and their lives, right? So those doors are those new connections. And so that's where the sales comes from. That's where the leadership comes from, so that we can think about opening and expansion instead of that fear that sometimes guides our interactions.
Man, so many good things there. I mean, honestly, you can unpack that very deeply and find out a lot of things that are the reason why your company may not be growing, you may not be making the sales, and so much of this is mindset. When you talk about opening doors, I can tell you that if you have a great network of people, number one, a great network of people around you, your 5, look at your 5 circle around you, your 5 people, how they influence your life. So having that as part of opening the door, but we talk about just having the opportunities. How often do you hear people say, man, I would have been a great singer if somebody had just discovered me like that? Well, maybe that's part of the opening doors.
Yes.
Right?
Asking, going and making yourself uncomfortable to have a conversation. I love that you brought up about the importance of the people that you surround yourself with. It is everything as far as you don't have an excuse. You're the one who gets to choose, right? Who you're spending your time with. And that choice can make all the difference in the results that you get.
Absolutely. One thing that I feel like has served me well through my life, and everything I've ever had any good result in, was number one, we talked about this on your show, leading with your heart first. Stop thinking so much with how can whatever I'm about to do benefit me and only me. Stop thinking like that. That's one of the first tips I have for you. But there's another thing that I think is very, very important. And for some, it's more natural than others. For a D, it's more natural. Maybe an I. For you C's and S's, I want you to know this too. And you got to apply it in your own way. But that is to ask, to make it be known that you're interested in something. I feel like too many people are sitting out there and they're thinking, well, if I get this opportunity, my method of doing things has always been this. If I hear something that I'm interested in, I go over and ask you, hey, I'd love to help you with this. How can I get involved? That one little thing, believe me, as natural as it is for me, I've done a lot of working with the public. I've done a lot of public speaking like you have, and I found that maybe 1 to 2% of people do that effectively.
Right.
And the rest of the 98 are sitting out there going, when's my opportunity to come? And I'm going to say,
for it to drop on your lap,
exactly,
right?
make it for yourself, and that's a good start, right?
Yes. Oh, I just need to add one more quick thing.
Please,
Is that
please.
okay? All right. So if you are one of those people who is uncomfortable with it, I want to encourage you to start by giving something to someone else. How can you serve someone? How can you look for someone who needs something? And when you do that, it creates this energy where they then will feel like they could reciprocate. It's not why you do it, but there is this energy in the world, whether it's directly from them or from you or wherever it comes from. The giving will create an open space for the receiving.
Beautiful thing. This can be applied both to the top and the bottom. Leaders.
Yeah.
Great leadership, Heather. Great leadership are the ones who are willing to give more than they take.
Yes.
And when you look at my leader acronym, the A in leader is altruism. Altruism is taking somebody else's interest above your own. Believe me, when you're out there today and you're wondering, how can I get back on track if you're struggling? Remember, go give something. Do something nice for somebody. Take that time to get yourself grounded. Understand that this is your cocoon that you may be coming out of. That may be the next great phase in your life. So rejoice a little bit when you get some challenges. Very powerful stuff. She is Heather Hansen O'Neill. She opened hearts, minds, and doors and showed you how to do it too. Heather, how can people find you?
Okay, so that Heather Hansen O'Neill, you can use that to find me anywhere. On LinkedIn, my website's heatherhanseno'neill.com. I encourage you to listen to the Humanity of Sales Where Purpose Meets Profit radio show, because you'll hear this one over here. It's a great show. That's every Sunday at 10 a.m. on Hot Talk 99.5.
Beautiful. Well, we'll check that out. You like the way I throw shots up and everything? The coastal
it.
grad, always want to get back to coastal Carolina.
That's awesome.
Heather, very nice having you on the show. Thanks for the knowledge.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And to the people listening to the show today, our fans and our supporters, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we hope you got some great things, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next time on the Leader Mentality Show with Rob Clemens.